God of War is one of those franchises that just sticks with you no matter what. Most people my age that I know personally have been playing God of War since they were little children, including myself. And I think it's important to analyze the God of War games over time because, weirdly enough, God of War is probably my favorite gaming franchise. And I know that's a pretty hot take with other very good gaming franchises, but God of War has just always stuck out to me. I always found Kratos to be one of my favorite protagonists in a gaming series, probably next to Cloud or maybe Master Chief. But nonetheless, God of War is a franchise that everybody knows of, everybody has played, and the overwhelming majority of the general public has enjoyed. So I want to put the God of War games into a tier list. So, what do we got here? Starting off, we have the OG God of War 1. God of War 1 is a pretty fucking good game, in my opinion. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's quick, it gets to the point, it's fun, has a very compelling story, has a story you can understand. Although, my one gripe, and this is just a personal thing, this isn't anything against the game, this is strictly me. When I first played God of War 1, I was a little kid. I remember I was in kindergarten and I came home from school one day. I got off the bus and went into my house and saw my uncle playing this on the TV in the living room. And I was very interested in it, but me being a little kid and there being blatant nudity in the game, he told me I was too young to play it. So me being a little badass kid that I decided to sneak on his PS2 whenever he went to work, and I played the game for myself, and I quite enjoyed it. It was fun to just go around and hack and slash at demons and other monsters and bosses. It was fun. The Hydra, I remember that very briefly. I couldn't even really get past it, to be honest. But when I got a little bit older and I played through it and I understood the story, I found it to be very compelling, and I think this is a great opening to a franchise such as God of War. And I think without this, there would be no God of War, obviously. But without this, we wouldn't have had a keen interest in further playing the series because the games got progressively better over time. Whoops, I didn't mean to start that. I accidentally I accidentally clicked on the music tab. So I think this is gonna have to go at Titan because there are better God of War games to go over. But for now, we gotta put God of War where it rightfully belongs. And I think it's a Titan, very good starter to the franchise. And on top of it, it serves as the stepping stone for what is to come some of the best video games of all time, in my opinion. I know that's a hard take because we have so many other good games, but God of War is a personal favorite of mine. We have God of War 18, and honestly, Santa Monica Studios took a really big fucking risk making this game. And honestly, in my opinion, it paid off. It went from action hack and slash to a more story oriented game, and I think it works perfectly well with how it's done. My only gripe with the game is I don't like how whiny Atreus is. I think we can all agree that boy, 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 father, look out! You need a healing stone. I think we can all agree that that shit was really annoying. Like I remember I would be trying to fight enemies and Atreus would just be yelling out dumb shit, and it would just distract me from fighting. I remember I got so annoyed, I just lost focus, and I got murked a couple of times. And also, this game is pretty fucking difficult if I'm being honest. All of the other God of Wars I've beaten on at least the hard difficulty, just starting out, whenever I got to a stage in life where I was serious about gaming. Like obviously whenever I was a kid, I didn't beat God of War 2 or God of War Ghost of Sparta on hard. Like I went for easy mode whenever I was a little kid, but whenever I became like pretty serious into gaming, I played all the God of War games on the hard difficulty. This was a fucking challenge and it was a fucking nightmare. And don't even get me started on Gimme God of War because Gimme God of War made me grow gray fucking hairs to the point where I needed to be in a geriatric facility. I remember I was fighting Magni and Modi on Gimme God of War. I died probably at least 200 times, and when it was all said and done, I was already in my grave, and I had already had a funeral. So I love the challenge that this game had. I love the story that it had. I love the combat. I mean, it's a little repetitive, but so isn't the rest of the God of War games. But this one just felt a little bit more slower paced. But nonetheless, I think it's great in terms of gameplay, storytelling, and character development because Kratos becomes something greater than he once was. I've always liked Kratos, even in the Greek saga. Many people will say, "Oh, well, he's just a bland character, revenge, blah blah blah." No, it goes a lot deeper than that if you actually pay attention to the story. And this is one of the best versions of any gaming character that I've ever seen, in my opinion. So it's gotta go God. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about this, but Chains of Olympus was definitely the weakest game for me personally. I didn't find the story very compelling. It didn't really make sense with how, oh my goodness. I can't even really explain this shit to be honest, but the story just did not make sense to me and it did not compel to me. Like, what the fuck is he doing looking for Helios? Why would, because this was at the point where Kratos was immortal, right? And I get it, he was immortal when he went on to take Ares, but he had to go through and find Pandora's box to give him the power to kill Ares. In this game, he's doing some crazy ass shit against some crazy ass entities that he shouldn't even be doing. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt and you can enjoy the game, but for me, it just wasn't it. I only beat it twice maybe. Like, I know I beat it at least once and then played through it some more, but I'm not sure if I beat it on a second run. But nonetheless, God of War Chains of Olympus just wasn't it for me. I mean, it was fun at the time whenever I was a kid, but just it doesn't stand out today. God of War 2 is the greatest God of War game, and I know that's a hot take because people love the new God of War, God of War Ragnarok, and people love God of War 3, but God of War 2 was the most fun. I played this one more than any of the other games. It has honestly the most brutal version of Kratos that I had seen because this is fresh when he is pissed off about the death of his brother. So he's still God mode at the beginning of it, and then he loses his powers, and then he just goes on a fucking rampage all throughout Olympus, and it's fucking awesome in my opinion. And it's even interesting where it left off at the beginning of God of War 3. I thought that that was done very well because you got a game that lasts you several hours. You're hacking and slashing and doing a bunch of cool shit. It has the best boss fights. You got the statue, you have the Sisters of Fate, you have Icarus. Like, even though Icarus wasn't really a fleshed out boss fight, it was still fun nonetheless. When you're falling and you have to, do the quick time events. I thought that was fun and done really well. And don't even get me started on Zeus. Zeus was a pretty fire ass boss fight. I really enjoyed the monsters in this shit too. Uh, the barbarian boss fight, I love that. God of War 2 is just something that I played through multiple times and I can never get tired of it. Very fun. Very, very fun game. God of War 3 is very, very similar. My only gripe with God of War 3, I'm not even really sure that I have a gripe, but some of the puzzles in the game really fucking confused me at the time when I first started playing it. I think I was like maybe 11 whenever I started playing it. I just didn't have a fun time because some of the puzzles didn't make sense. But nonetheless, this is a really good game and it was a really good way to end off the Greek saga. I can appreciate a game that does so much work to be a good game. And it was very obvious through this game. The boss fights are some of the best in the series. Kratos looked better than ever because we had upgraded from the PS2 and the PSP hardware to the PS3 hardware. Kratos, like, it looked like a PS5 game whenever it came out, but that's just honestly the nostalgia in me talking. But nonetheless, God of War 3 was an excellent game. I thought it had some of the most brutal fights in the series. I appreciated Poseidon. I appreciated the boss fight against Zeus. My only issue with the boss fights is one particular boss fight, and it's with Hermes. This little motherfucker is talking his shit, going around. We're chasing him around Greece, right? And when we get to him, we just cut his leg off and take his shoes. Like, Kratos really punked that nigga, and it's fucking funny. But I was expecting a little more something brutal, if you know what I'm getting at. And yeah, it's brutal to cut someone's leg off and have them literally rot. But nonetheless, Something like Poseidon, like where Kratos just plucks his fucking eyes out and snaps his neck and throat. Like that's brutal as fuck. I wanted to see something like that with the Hermes fight. But I get it. But nonetheless, great game. Great game. God of War Ghost of Sparta is a pretty good game. I think it is a step down from the God tier games. So I'm going to have to put it at Titan because this is where we learn a little bit of the backstory of Kratos and what makes him so angry against the gods of Olympus. And I think it was done masterfully. I really enjoyed this game. It's been years since I picked it up and played it. I'm going to see if there's a way that I actually can play it so that way I can go over it again. But nonetheless, amazing game. Amazing game. We see so much depth within Kratos. And all these idiots that are online talking about how the Greek version of Kratos was just a raging, violent sociopath. I challenge you to pick up this game and actually play through it and learn about Kratos, learn about his history, learn about his family, learn about what makes him tick. Because for someone, for a character as fleshed out as Kratos, this game serves really well. And if you're familiar with Greek mythology in general, like this seems pretty fucking normal the way Kratos behaves, to be honest, if you're really that familiar. But that's a story for another time. God of War Ragnarok is a fucking masterpiece. I love that game. I think I like it a little bit better than 2018, to be honest. Simply because there's more shit to do. Kratos can maneuver better. You can swing with the chains. Like, it just improved on everything that was great about 2018 and made it better. And also, I like the spear a lot. Like that thing is fucking cool. Bro just snaps his fingers. He has a spear, tosses that shit. It's good to see Kratos with a spear in these Norse games, and I think it was done very well. The only problem I have with it is I didn't like playing as Atreus because it was just drawn out way too long. It was very tedious, and I didn't really enjoy playing as Atreus. And I have an uneasy feeling that the future of God of War games are going to be heavily reliant on Atreus, and I just don't know how I feel about that. God of War is Kratos' game, and I think we can all universally agree on that. So, nonetheless, it's a God tier game. God of War Ascension is probably the most hated on game, but honestly, I enjoyed God of War Ascension. I thought it was the best looking God of War game at the time. I think it was sad that we didn't really have weapons because I mean, every other every other God of War installment had multiple weapons. God of War 1, you had the blades of Chaos and the blade of Artemis, and both of those weapons were essential. God of War 2 had the barbarian hammer and that one spear. God of War 3, claws of Hades. You had the Nemesis whip, the Nemean cestises, and the blades. The blades are persistent through every game, but this game was just the blades, and you had four different elements or god matters that you could choose from whenever you were going forward in the story. But I mean, while the story didn't really make sense, it was still just really fun to play and it looked amazing. So that's why I got it a little bit higher than God of War Chains of Olympus. Nonetheless, all these games are essential. They're very inspirational to the hack and slash genre that's still persistent today, even in today's standards. And I think we can all really appreciate God of War and all that it's done because it's kept a lot of us occupied. It's very good for fast-paced gamers such as myself because me, I like stimulation. I like getting on a video game and just, going to town, doing shit. The only games that I really have patience for are the RPGs that I play. But God of War has always been a super fun game to play. And most, if not all of these games, I could go through and play again like it's brand spanking fucking new, honestly. But yeah, I just wanted to go over that tier list. So please like, subscribe, and comment. Keep the conversation going. I'm trying to grow the channel a little bit and just talk about gaming and internet culture. So if you're interested and you want to see some more stuff like this, just drop a subscription and like and comment. So I'll see y'all later.